So today I'm going to show you how to make that focaccia dough that I've been using in some of those wonderful dishes you've seen in so many other videos, like that sausage pizza focaccia, which was so yummy. So anyway, the recipe is actually pretty simple, and it's designed in such a way that pretty much you can do it without spending a whole lot of time. You just have to basically keep an eye on the dough and make sure you do the stretching. And there is a cold fermenting phase that you're going to leave it in the fridge overnight, but you can skip that option if you want to make it the same day. You'll just find it's going to be more flavorful if you do the cold fermentation. So we start off with our water, flour, yeast, and salt. Really, that's about it. I am going to also add a little honey, you'll see, just to feed the yeast. So I have about 1 3/4 cups of water, and to that I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of salt. Now I want to mention to you that you might be thinking, well, it seems unusual to be adding the salt to the water. Well, what I've been doing is I'm researching a lot of different ways of making dough and even making pizza dough, and I came across a chef named Leo Spizzeri, and he's an expert pizza maker, and he has a technique such that he adds the salt to the water first, and he gradually adds the flour, so the flour can soak up the water, as he said, on its own terms. And I've tried this recipe many times, and it seems to work very, very well. So if it works, keep going with it, right? If it works, don't fix it. Well, let's try that out. So what we're going to do is we're just going to make sure that I'm getting my hands ready in here. I'm going to dissolve that Himalayan salt. Most pizza chefs will actually, if this was an actual pizza dough, would recommend using sea salt. That's what I've found. So we're going to just kind of gradually add some of this flour, maybe about 1/3 of it. Get started here, and just kind of work it into the water. As I said already, we'll let in the dough, the pizza dough, the water, absorb the flour on its own terms gradually here. So I'm going to keep adding flour. Eventually, what we're going to see, we're going to use our hands to kind of scrape the edges. What we're going to see is that these gluten strands are already starting to develop, even in this sort of pancake-like slurry that we have right here. We'll get up a little closer to the camera so you can see. Okay. So we're going to keep adding. And what we're going to end up with is a mixture, a dough that is fairly wet. Okay. Now at this point, before we get too hydrated, too much flour added, we are going to add our yeast. And dry yeast is okay. Some of the great pizza chefs will want to use the real yeast, the actual live yeast that needs to be refrigerated. So I've just added a little bit of honey also. At this point, I'm just going to keep working this dough with my fingers. And we can definitely see already those gluten fibers starting to develop, which is what we want. So I'm going to add the rest of my flour now, and at this point probably get in there with a spatula or a spoon. Now that the flour has absorbed a good amount of the water already, try not to be too messy. I'm going to keep working it. And basically combine everything well, and we're just going to let it rest for about a half hour or so before we do our first stretching. As you can see, this is still really sticky, and as it sits, what's going to happen is the flour will have another opportunity, more of an opportunity, I should say, to absorb the liquid, and it'll be a little bit firmer. So I am going to actually cover this. We're going to come back in about half hour or so, and we're going to do our first stretching. But really, the bottom line is, this is the majority of the work is already done. There's no kneading required. What we're going to be doing is basically do 4 stretches on the dough, let it sit for another hour, maybe 2, if you have the time to do that, and then do 1 more stretching, and then put it into the fridge overnight, at least overnight, or maybe 24 hours. We can leave it in the fridge for at least, I would say, 2 or 3 days if you have that time, or if you don't want to use it right away. But you can also decide, hey, I want to make this focaccia today. And what you will see is actually the dough will develop fairly well and will get a lot of bubbling, so that you can actually cook it the same day that you make it if you don't want to wait for that cold fermentation. But I keep stressing that cold fermentation is something that does actually make the dough taste a lot better. Gives it a whole new flavor profile. So if you can afford that time, I say go for it. I also wanted to mention, for our flour today, we use King Arthur bread flour, which has 12.7% gluten-forming protein. You use whatever you prefer, but you do want to use a high gluten kind of flour for focaccia, breads, pizzas, that kind of thing, because you do get the much better gluten strands developing, and your bread is going to have much more character to it. Also, you notice I didn't add any olive oil. Some of the recipes you'll see online for focaccias require olive oil. I found that the dough behaves a little bit better without the olive oil in terms of the rising and the bubbles forming. And also, when I actually bake my focaccia, I use copious amounts of olive oil in the pan, and when I'm working in the pan, flipping it over, so there's going to be plenty of olive oil on the dough when it's baked. So I don't find it necessary to be adding it at this stage. Okay, so it's been a little bit over an hour. I'll let it go a little bit longer because it's colder today, and I want to give it a chance to get a decent rise. So it's roughly about double the volume that it was before. So what we're going to do right now is we're just going to do basically 4 folds, and you notice, look at how nice that stretches out. Up and over, up and over. And you can see those nice bubbles developing already. So you don't even have to get your hands dirty at this stage if you don't want to. Up and over. And we're going to do 1 more. Stretch it out nice. And I'm just going to cover that again. Let it go for another hour or so. Do 1 more stretch and put it into the fridge and let it cold ferment overnight. Okay, so I'm going to give the dough 1 last look here, last fold, and I'm going to set it into the fridge to do the cold fermentation. Now if you look at this, how beautiful it is right now, you can see all the bubbles forming, and it's probably tripled in volume. It's turning out very nicely. So as I did before, I'm just going to do the same thing. Just going to stretch the dough a little bit more. 1, 2, 3. I mean, you could do this with your hands if you wanted to, but it's really not necessary. And 4. And we have a beautiful focaccia dough. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take a Tupperware container, put a little olive oil in there so it doesn't stick. Mix that olive oil around a little bit. And we're just going to set it into container. This beautiful dough. And we're going to leave it in the fridge. I'm going to put this into the fridge and let it cold ferment. Now, as I said before, I'm going to mention, if you want to use this dough the same day, you can certainly, I'll go ahead and do that because it's already had a chance to prove a couple of times. And what you can do at this point, instead of putting it into the Tupperware container, you could put it into like a sheet tray, like a cookie sheet. And that's obviously lined with parchment and some olive oil, and just let it proof for another hour. And what you could do then is go ahead and make your focaccia the same day. Or, in my case, I like to be able to do things a little bit ahead because the dough tastes so much better when you do the cold fermentation. And trust me, it's worth the wait. So, I'm going to put that in the fridge, and tomorrow we'll take a look and see what it looks like. Hello again. So, as you can see, I've taken my dough out of the fridge to show you what it looks like after cold fermenting overnight. As you can see, there are beautiful bubbles that develop. It's light and airy. It's ready for us to take the next step and make our focaccia, cook our focaccia. So if you like this video, please click the like button. I appreciate that. And subscribe so you'll know when I make this into something delicious. In fact, if you could put in the comments what kind of focaccia you'd like me to make, I will look at the comments and decide from there what the next focaccia is going to be. Do you want it to be savory? Do you want it to be sweet? We can go all kinds of directions. Use your imagination, and again, please leave that suggestion in the comments, and I'll be making a video soon which will show you how to actually bake this focaccia. Or you can also look at my other video, which I'll be posting a link to in this description, where I made a pizza focaccia, sausage pizza focaccia. So bye for now, and God bless.